We're surrounded by all this incredible technology, but have you ever stopped to think about where it all comes from? Well, the story behind one of the world's most popular programming languages isn't just surprising, honestly, it's pretty funny. Let's get into it.
So, let's get right to it. Why on earth is the programming language Python called Python? You've probably seen the name a million times and never thought twice about it, but the real story is so much more interesting than you'd expect.
Okay, so before I give you the real answer, we've got to tackle what everyone thinks it is. Because there's this really logical, super obvious assumption that pretty much everybody makes.
I mean, it's the snake, right? It just makes perfect sense. The logo has two snakes, the name is Python, seems like an open and shut case. A powerful, flexible language named after a powerful, flexible reptile. Obvious.
But that completely logical assumption, it's totally wrong. It is not, and it was never named after the snake. The entire reptile connection came way, way later.
So, if it's not the snake, then what is it? Let's dive into the real origin story, which takes us all the way back to the late 1980s and has absolutely nothing to do with biology.
Get this, it's named after a British comedy show, Monty Python's Flying Circus. Yeah, you heard that right. One of the most dominant forces in modern software is named after a totally surreal, kind of chaotic British sketch comedy troupe. Not a snake, a group of comedians. So the guy who created the language, Guido van Rossum, was working on this new project over his Christmas holiday. And, well, he happened to be a huge fan of Monty Python, and he needed a name for his creation.
And his motivation here is absolutely key. In a world of super serious, kind of intimidating programming language names, Guido wanted something totally different. He picked a name that was short, unique, and fun. 3 words that, at the time, were the complete opposite of how people viewed coding.
And this wasn't just some name he slapped on it. No, the influence ran deep. The early Python documentation and code examples were just filled with inside jokes from the show. So if you've ever seen a tutorial using placeholder words like spam and eggs, you're literally looking at a direct nod to a classic Monty Python sketch. It's wild.
But here's the thing. This is way more than just a fun trivia fact. That choice of name was actually the very first sign of a revolutionary philosophy that would come to define Python and drive its incredible success. It was all about putting people first.
This slide really shows the core difference in thinking. The prevailing mindset was that programming was technical, complex, and really built for machines. Guido's approach was the exact opposite. Make it friendly, readable, and build it for people.
So the crucial point is that this philosophy became Python's core identity. Everything about it, from its simple syntax to its clean, readable code, was designed to lower the barrier to entry and, believe it or not, actually make programming enjoyable.
And guess what? It worked. This human-centric, approachable mindset isn't just a footnote. Many people argue it is the single biggest reason Python just exploded in popularity, becoming one of the most used languages on the entire planet.
Okay, but what about the snake? I know you're wondering. It does come back into the picture. The story of the name's legacy doesn't just end with Monty Python.
So over time, as the language grew beyond its initial small circle of users, people naturally started to connect the name Python with the animal. By the mid-90s, the community itself started embracing the snake imagery, which eventually led to that iconic logo we all know today.
So to be perfectly clear, the comedy came first from the creator. The snake came second from the community. It's a really fascinating example of how a project's identity can evolve in the hands of the people who use it.
So what can we take away from all this? This story is a perfect case study for a much bigger idea, the power of a name.
All right, let's connect the dots one last time. A seemingly random name choice, inspired by comedy, was actually the first expression of a powerful philosophy, making technology human-friendly. That philosophy drove Python's design, fueled its global success, and proves that a name is never just a name, it's the start of a story.
And that leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder. If Python's fun name was a deliberate rejection of the serious and corporate languages that came before it, what exactly did the names of those older languages tell us about their philosophy? Something to think about.